Squealers Week. We'll talk about the Bengals versus Steelers coming up next on the Wincinnati podcast.
It's an exciting time to be a Bengals fan.
I'm AC Zell.
We got a special show as always.
The voice of the Bengals. Dan Ford, Willie Anderson, Corey Dillon.
The name of this thing is called Wincinnati, and I'm not going to stop.
Talk to us about that roller coaster season.
I'm still going to give you the same AJ.
I'm going to work as hard as I can to be the best.
Always working ever since I met y'all, boy.
I got to get your top 5 receivers.
Better, man.
It was good.
Watch out for us.
Welcome to the Wincinnati podcast. He is Zim. I am Ace. Make sure y'all hit that subscribe button right now. Help us reach 4,500. We appreciate that. Make sure you like this video, share it. Zim, it's Steelers week. Zim, a little Mason Rudolph. They were cheering for him last week. Them having put Mason Rudolph in signs is nasty. That's nasty work. That made me laugh. Like that really had me laughing with them chanting that. How are you feeling though, bro?
I'm feeling like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. We gotta pack him up and send him back wherever bro came from. Like, I make no, quarrels about it. I'm one of them guys. I'm an old school Bengal fan at this point now where I don't give compliments to other teams and I don't care about your other team and I think y'all suck and I hate this Pittsburgh Steelers. I grew up my whole entire life hating the Pittsburgh Steelers. So that will never change. So I'm 100% ready to get this game on. I'm glad it's on a Saturday. Like I feel like it gives us a free Freedom Sunday. You get ready Christmas Eve, you know what I mean? Like coming up and everything. Like, I don't know. I like it being on Saturday.
Yeah, I like that too, bro. Cause it kind of also, you don't have the pressure of seeing how these games play out and all of this and that. Like we get our game out the way first, and then you can kind of just sit back, relax, and kind of watch the other games. I thought that was pretty dope to be able to do that last week and this week. So on today's show, we're going to talk about the Jamar Chase injury. We will touch on that a little bit. Obviously, the Bengals ended up signing a nose tackle off of waivers and Travis Bell. We'll talk about him, but there's also another guy as we're recording this on Friday at 1:19 p.m. that just became available in Sebastian Joseph-Day. So we'll talk about the prospects of can the Bengals pick him up, what that looks like, and our thoughts on that. And then, of course, we got to preview the game. Big AFC North matchup coming up, playoff implications. So we'll get into that next on the Wincinnati podcast.
I'm really the best in the league. You know that. Y'all better respect it.
Yes, sir. Y'all better respect it.
He really is putting in a great case for being the best slot, corner. This is Mike Hilton's this is best season, bro.
For sure.
The Bengals.
For sure. No, I agree with you. Like that game he played last week, he just jumped off the film. He jumped off the tape, the interceptions. Like Mike went crazy last week. Obviously, he might go crazy this week going against his old team. And speaking of his old team, Zim, is this Steelers team in turmoil? There's a lot of unhappy players. Is Tomlin out of there? Like, obviously, we love that. But is this the best chance the Bengals have at winning?
I feel like out of our division, the Steelers are the one team that hasn't really done much to adapt to the things that the Bengals have done. So even when the schedule, came out, I'm like, bro, I think we should sweep the Steelers. And I was so upset that we just lost to them. It's been 3-4 weeks now, right?
Yeah.
I just don't think that they match up well. All the teams in our division went and got cornerbacks. Yes, they did get Joey Porter. But I mean, like the injuries that they have that we're going to get into in a second, all these different things that they got going on, whether it's in the offseason, I was like, well, if the Steelers had like a Wheaton-like guy, like that could take the top off speed guy, I think it might help out Kenny Pickett. I mean, Allen Robinson and George Pickens and Deontay Johnson, like that combination never even really was lit to me to begin with. And then when you talk about like all the stuff that they got going, if you don't know or you're underneath a rock, George Pickens didn't block, kind of took a couple plays off last couple weeks. Didn't block, dude running the football, Jalen Warren. So they asked him afterwards, and he was like, yeah, I didn't want to get hurt. Jalen Warren was like, yeah, I would have blocked for bro, but you know what I'm saying, it is what it is. Tyler Boyd had a comment yesterday and said, you know, like it's crazy that a lot of people would, and I don't want to misquote him, but matter of fact, Cincinnati, we're going to put out like a graphic on the Tyler Boyd quote because it is a really good quote. But he's just pretty much saying that like it's easy to cheer or everything is turned up. You get your highlight videos and everything like that when you're winning, but when you're losing, he was like, that's why it's so important as a professional to just pretty much stay the exact same week to week. And I thought like that was a good summary of like what them dudes like they're pouting and all this other stuff. And you see like some of the older ones on their team kind of try to be a bigger voice. I saw Cam Hayward having like a, you know, like his Christmas drive yesterday and, you know, like trying to keep those positive affirmations and stuff in place. But the guys that they really need to win, I just don't think are all the way locked in with them.
Yeah, I think it is turmoil right there over in Pittsburgh. They've always kind of had a loose locker room, and sometimes that works when you have a situation where you're winning. Currently, they are not. They are currently on a skid. You have a lot of different egos and a lot of different players in there that have some of those traits. And obviously, when you have traits like that, like a George Pickens, whether it's fair or not, you're going to get that side of him, and it's going to be highlighted when that team starts struggling. You got a lot of players like Minka that are the leaders that will not be on the field Sunday. And you have a lot of what seems to be kind of infighting, whether it's with the coaching staff, with Matt Canada, who was there before, whether it's with certain players on the team. So for me, I'm happy with the turmoil, but it's definitely turmoil, and it's definitely something that can derail the Steelers season. And I think the Bengals are sitting there like 300, ready to pretty much kick them off the cliff in their season. Will Tomlin depart? I mean, I hope they do. I hope they get rid of Tomlin. That would make it even more of a turmoil situation because then you'd be looking for a quarterback and a coach. But if I'm speaking from an analyst perspective and not just a Bengals fan that would love to relish in the Steelers turmoil, I would say that Mike Tomlin isn't really the problem per se. Like I think Tomlin, the fact that they have as many games as they won now is because of Tomlin. I don't think anybody, if you were realistically looking at the Steelers coming into this season with Kenny Pickett at quarterback, with us having Joe Burrow, with a Lamar Jackson, and with the AFC loaded up at quarterback, with a guy like CJ Stroud, who's light years better than Kenny Pickett, I don't think anybody thought that they would be competing this season. So I'm loving the turmoil. I think we're playing at the right time, but I agree with Zim. I actually had us when Joe went down. I had us sweeping the Steelers because I thought that they were that bad of a team.
Right.
So I am upset, like Zim is, that we didn't get that first game, especially with it being so close, especially with it being at home.
Look,
our man Andre Parada, what's up, man? Who they?
And it's perfect that he's there though, because we're going to talk about this Sebastian Joseph.
Yeah, let's get into it. We can go into that.
So I don't know. Do you have his tweet pulled up like that you wanted to show on there? But I think there was a little bit of like confusion on, you know, what is it? You know, when I first saw that they cut him, I'm like, okay, whoever would get him would be responsible for a 7.5. I think he had like a $7.5 million contract. So I'm like, I don't know if the Bengals gonna move on that. I thought Andre Parada did a real good job of like breaking down what it would take to go get him.
Yeah, he did. I'm gonna try to get that tweet pulled up. But Zam, while I'm doing that, talk about what it would be like for the Bengals. Obviously, they added a guy in Travis Bell, but obviously,
I think if you get Sebastian Joseph-Day, you go cut Travis Bell and say. This is what I was saying with the Tierra Tart one. I like that one. You know, I thought he would have been a great addition. I think that personality-wise, characteristic-wise, I don't know, you know, all the stuff that went on around with it. I've been told from my sources or whatever that, you know, he was a cancer in the locker room, right? So it kind of made me like off of him a little bit, even though I think he could have filled the role. Sebastian Joseph-Day, I would be here to tell you all, I think that the Bengals are more than capable of going just as far as whatever they would have did with DJ Reader. Is he DJ Reader? No, he's not. But as far as being able to play the one tech and being able to give you a little bit of pocket push, I've seen him in between playing between the A and the B gap before too. So I know he's capable with a little bit of three tech, skill set as well as two. I haven't monitored him this year, but he's a great replacement in my mind for anybody that's saying, well, the Bengals don't stop the run. this guy can help you stop the run. He started 14 games for the Chargers, and I guess the Chargers are giving him an opportunity to go and play for a contender. The Bengals, I know they don't have Joe Burrow, but to me, long term, we were talking off camera. A lot of people have been talking about getting a DJ Reader replacement. I've seen the free agent list and I've seen all the stuff. To me, my strategy will be more throwing more bodies at the position so that the Bengals have rotations of BJ Hill, a guy like Sebastian Joseph-Day. I think you get him in the building, let him finish out the season. Maybe we win the Super Bowl, maybe we don't. Regardless, he's in the spot, and then you kind of got first dibs offering him like a contract. And I think the contract wouldn't be much, and he's another guy in the rotation that I think you don't have to replace DJ Reader. You just need competent guys that have the strength and the skill set to make it happen.
Yeah, so pulling up some of those numbers on him, he has 3 sacks this season. That's tied for 42nd against defensive tackles. He's got a PFF pass rush grade of 64, a run defense PFF grade of 54. Overall, he's at a 59. Which is somewhat close to the average, a little below average or somewhat there. But, if he gets to a 60, that's average. So he's right on the cusp of that. He's got 15 hurries, 7 QB hits, 25 total pressures, 19 tackles solo, and then 12 assisted tackles. With him being a nose tackle, though, that is pretty amazing for him having 3 sacks from that position, because that is not a position that is known to really pressure the quarterback. For the most part, their responsibility is stopping the run. When you look at him on the SIS metrics, it looks like he is averaging 0.6 points per game, which is a positive metric for what they have there. If you needed a reference for that, Joey Bosa is at 1.1. So he's obviously one of the best players on that Chargers defense. Khalil Mack is at a 3 right now. So a guy that's a team captain, I think, like Zim is saying, they're giving him a chance to win. You don't cut a team captain like that. Just doesn't happen. Reading between the lines, I think that's interesting. But as Andre Parada pointed out in this tweet, it's not a situation where you're going to be responsible for the $7.5 million. It's going to be a situation where the Bengals, if they were to claim him, would just give him the $722,000 right now. And then if they decided to keep him next March, then they would have to pay the $7.5 million. So like Zim is saying, if you don't have a situation or a situation where you have a replacement for DJ Reader, this is definitely a possible insurance policy, something that can help you right now and can help you a little later in the season. And I believe right now the Bengals are 23rd in free agent priority. So definitely interesting. What about Travis Bell, though? Like, Travis Bell is here now. Is he going to play in the Steelers game? Because I did see the Bengals just activated Dominique Davis, who's a defensive tackle. But Travis Bell, I assume, is on the active roster since they claimed him.
You think so?
I think he is. I think if you claim him, I think he has to go to the active roster. I don't think that they put him on the practice squad. But do you think that he plays this game, or is it a situation where you think that they wait a little bit and see what happens with Sebastian Joseph-Day?
I mean, they do need bodies at the position, and that I know that Lou Anarumo said that he's not kicking Sam Hubbard inside at all. So, but to me, I think you roll with Tupou Tufele and Dominique Davis, right? That's his name, right?
Right. Yeah.
So I think, to me, I roll with that. Yes, Bella's on the active roster, but I will make him game day inactive. Now, I don't know who that knocks off. I think they might have to activate, and the reason why I say I don't think he will be active for me, I think because of the injury to DJ Ivy, they're going to have to call up Sidney Jones. Yeah, they did. They actually did call up Sidney Jones. So Sidney Jones is on the active roster. So you think he's going to be kind of a special teams kind of situation? Who Bell or just Sidney Jones?
Sidney Jones.
I think Sidney Jones maybe. Yeah, I don't know if in practice he's been doing special teams, but I do know, like, from a depth position, you would have to have another outside corner. Currently, right now, it'd be Jalen Davis is your slot backup. You only other outside corner outside as a backup is Allen George. So you had to have like another outside corner, and that's why, like, Sidney Jones was like a guy. And it's crazy. Awuzie just said last week, he was like, man, we got a real good secondary room. He was like, guys that are starting in this league are like on the practice squad. He literally said that last week, this before Ivy got hurt. But he was talking about how Sidney Jones is like on the practice squad, where that's not normal that a guy of that caliber would, be on the, on the practice squad. But I just think that the Davis one, I think that he's going to be like a game day inactive, like how they've been doing Chris Evans for like the last couple of weeks or whatever. I think you would need him, but I think Tupou and Tufele will get the nod, and Dominic Davis, and those are the three big guys that you would just kind of rotate to me. That's what I would do.
No, for sure. This Steelers game, man. Tyler Boyd, you talked about him criticizing the camaraderie after Pickens gave up on the block. Do you think that this is a situation where going into this game, we saw some trickery from the Bengals last week? Is this a situation where they keep the trick plays going, or do you think that they don't work against the AFC North? I don't think you need trick plays against a defense like this.
I'm so sick of trick plays from this team. In the timing of these trick plays, it's like they'll be rolling. And then they'll just do a trick play. And I'm just like, why? Like any other team would just stomp you. And it's so crazy because, Zach Taylor's been coaching well. I mean, the other part of it is, let me ask you this, though. Sometimes do you look at those trick plays like the one last week? If Tanner Hudson looks back to his left, he's got Browning wide open over there. And I guess, I don't know if he just panicked. Like, I'm not an NFL player. The moment it starts to look big, you're like, oh, I got the football. And you know what I mean? But Browning, is it like a thing where you're just looking at the Bengals faulting the execution? Think about the Tyler Boyd one the week before where he throws an interception right to the dude. It's like, that's not the way Taylor, called it up. Are you more mad at the execution or the actual play call?
I think I'm more upset about the execution of the actual play calls and kind of the situation of when they're happening, right? Like, the Tyler Boyd one, I don't know if I'm calling that deep in my own territory, right? Where he throws the interception and it's a disaster and it ends up getting cribbed. So I'm not going to put that on Tyler Boyd. Like, some of that falls on the coaching staff. So it's a little bit of the execution. And then it's also, knowing when to run that. And then we look at the one that happened last week. They're calling the trick play in the red zone, it seemed like, or close to the red zone, at least, if my memory serves me correct. So I was kind of like, that's a weird spot to really run a trick play pass. Now, if you're going with like a reverse or something, triple reverse where somebody's running it in, that kind of makes sense. But like the pass it kind of threw me off. So I think it's a combination of both. I'm not mad at them for getting in their bag and trying to do the trick plays. I just don't know if Pittsburgh, and maybe, you know what? Maybe I will retract that statement that I wouldn't run a trick play against Pittsburgh, being that both of their safeties are out, right? So you could have some miscommunication on the back end, and you could potentially hit them with one of those. So we'll see, but I just think that it's a situation where it's a combination of both, like the timing and the execution just hasn't aligned. But who knows? That doesn't mean that they should really throw them out of the window. So with that being said, we are going to pass it to our folks at Midwest Best Barbecue, and then we're going to get more into the meat of this matchup. Pause. Yo, that was crazy. Definitely a big pause there, but shout out to Midwest.
What made you say that? The whole time
I
the
meant to
song was
say
playing,
meat
I'm
and
like,
potatoes, and that
meat and
went
potato.
crazy.
Okay, I was just
That
like,
went
what is
crazy.
that? Yeah, that
But
was a
you
little
can't
questionable.
and potatoes at Midwest Best
They in the
Barbecue.
comments they said more into the meat.
They can get meat and potatoes at Midwest Best Barbecue. Make sure you stop by. You can get some of those Uno wings. Recently did a poll. Ask people out there, are you taking the CTB wings? Are you taking the Uno wings? The CTB wings kind of slightly edged them out there with the buffalo lemon pepper. I haven't gotten a chance to have them myself. I can't wait to make a trip to the Natty to get some. But from what I've heard, seems like they slapping. Everything slaps at Midwest. I already knew that they were slapping because what Tib and Nicole do there is amazing. Don't forget the other flavored wings, though, as well. You have the G-Funk, which is a Midwest Best Barbecue staple. You also had the Grippo. You also had the garlic and Parmesan as well, and the sour cream and onion as well. So make sure that you guys hit up Midwest Best Barbecue, 669 Justice Court in Loveland, Ohio. You can also make your order at MidwestBestBarbecue.com. But with that being said,
I gotta slide. I gotta slide there for that Browns game. I might have to go there and get some wings. So y'all make sure y'all holler at me when we get around there. I'm sorry, what were you about to say?
Nah, I think I might slide to that one too, bro. But Bengals are opening up as a 2.5-point favorite against the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. For me, obviously, we kind of talk about what that means from a Vegas standpoint, right? Usually Vegas gives the home team about 3 points. So that means that they expect possibly the Bengals as a 5-point favorite. You could look at that. What are your thoughts just on like where you're thinking this game will be from that kind of standpoint? Do you think that they clear the 2.5? Do you think that that's, despite being away, is that fair? And it looks like the over-under is hovering around 37.5 points at the minute.
I just think in the AFC North, this game traditionally goes to the home team. I think the only reason why they're giving the points to the Bengals in this is because the third-string quarterback, Mason Rudolph, and then the injuries to the Steelers. But to me, none of that stuff really matters in the overall sense of things. Like, I'm not the biggest Minka Fitzpatrick fan. I'm not like Pat Pete. I feel like he's a good, role guy at this point in his career, not a starting safety. There's so many different things that just scream out to you. The Bengals should just blow these guys out. That's just not the way football works, particularly like in our division. It's usually pretty close on all of these games, and generally the home team gets it, which is so crazy about the last 2 years with the Bengals. It's like when we swept like the Ravens or swept the Steelers, they could tell you whoever wasn't there. I just know I've been watching this for a long time. It's hard. Like we were beating the hell out of like teams and sweeping the Steelers. It's so hard to do that in our division. Like if you sweep a team, it's generally like you did it really close. The way that we did that in 2021 is unheard of. And I just think that our fans are kind of like drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit, so to speak. I don't think that the Steelers are a really good team, but I don't think that the drop-off from a really bad team in the NFL to above average, or which I deem us to be a good team. We're not an elite team right now. We're a good team. And I don't think that drop-off is that severe to say like, oh, yeah, we should be beating these guys by X amount of points or what have you. Right. So it's a tough call. I don't know if I call it fair. I just think it's Mason Rudolph and it's a gang of injuries. So you get a tilt to that. And I think most people from a Vegas standpoint are going to be all over that injury report and running with that money line pretty hard. So.
No, for sure. Our man, the regular dude, $2 super chat. Appreciate that, bro. He says, is JB having a Nick Foles moment? Jake Browning, I think he potentially could be. I mean, the story still has to write itself. Obviously, we know how that story ended. We're in the middle of the chapter, so I think it's potentially something like that, but we'll have to see how the rest of the story plays out. But I think it is a little bit different, and I think he was kind of compared to Brock Purdy, and he kind of made it known like, no, this is a different type of situation than Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy's still young. He actually got drafted at the end of the round. And I think with Nick Foles, there are some parallels, but it's still different as well. Like Nick Foles was a guy that was drafted, didn't work out, and then later in his career ends up making a run with another club. So I do think Jake Browning is writing his own story, and I think I think it's the Jake show. So the Jake Browning story, we'll see where it ends. But so far, it's been an amazing story thus far.
Can I ask you about the Tomlin on Steelers real quick? You interact with probably, on the AFC North talk. The Tomlin conversation that you were talking about at the beginning of the show. I wanted to ask you something, but I didn't want to cut you off. Like, do Steelers fans think that, like, I hear them talking about getting rid of Tomlin a lot, right? What maybe I've asked you this before, but I want to ask everybody in here: what makes Steelers fans feel like the entitlement to say that? I look at Tomlin like it is a miracle that you have 7 wins with that roster. I look at that roster when it was healthy, and I say I think that that's like a 9-win team at most. And now I get it; they dealt with a lot of injuries, had some embarrassing losses to the Cardinals, the Raiders, at home or whatever, but. What do they think that Tomlin hasn't done right? Like, he's not an X's and O's guys. He's a motivator for one, and getting guys to play above and beyond their means. When I look at that team, I'm just like, what skill position outside of their front makes them feel like I wouldn't take anybody on their roster except Isaac Simelu, the guard, and then the other. They got 2 O linemen I would take, and then I would take guys on their defensive line. I wouldn't take anybody in their secondary. I wouldn't take any of their linebackers. I wouldn't take any of their wide receivers. I barely would entertain the idea of a running back with Warren. Aside from that, what makes them think that, like, Tomlin isn't doing a good job when their roster isn't good?
I think it's the entitlement that you hit on. I think them having Big Ben. I think Ben, they feel like Ben masked some Tomlin stuff, but I don't feel like that. I feel like Ben was kind of washed and they just didn't really want to admit it, to be honest with you. I think that they just don't know what it's like because a lot of Steelers fans that didn't grow up to know the Tommy Maddoxes and stuff, the Charlie Batches that were there before Ben, a lot of them didn't grow up on that, bro. They grew up on Big Ben. They grew up on Tomlin. So they don't know what it's like to be in a situation where your quarterback is garbage or, you don't have the right coach in there, like a situation like, the Browns. They've never been through anything like that. They've never been through a rebuild. They've never been through a situation where they've had to be in a rut and get themselves out of it. They haven't been in a situation where they've had to losing and tanking might be the best situation for them. I told them years ago, bro, I think it may have been 2019. It was when they started out bad and then they made the trade for Minka. And I was like, a safety is not about to fix your problems. Like your problem is really that you have Ben, he's getting old, and you're seeing these teams in the North getting ready to go out and get a quarterback. So you saw Lamar Jackson, you saw like the Bengals going to get Joe Burrow, and they waited. And when they chose to get a quarterback because they didn't want to hurt Ben's feelings, quote unquote, even though during that time, what were they doing? They weren't Super Bowl contenders. They weren't any of those years. It was just straight playoffs and that's it. And apparently, I thought that they talk about their 6 rings so much. I would have thought that the standard would have been winning a Super Bowl. I don't know what the standard is in Pittsburgh right now. I don't think that they know. And I think that they're panicking because they've never been in this situation before. And everything that we and other people have told them was going to happen is happening now. Like Kenny Pickett's not it. You're in the Andy Dalton situation. Like you have a team that's not too bad, but it's not too good. It's not good enough to compete in the playoffs. And they see now, if you don't have that quarterback, it's over for you. And I agree with you. When you look at the roster and the talent, it's okay. It's not like they have one of the best rosters in the NFL. And it really reminds me kind of a 2019 Bengals where you had an older Geno Atkins, you had an older Carlos Dunlap, and you're in the middle of kind of rebooting that. And you've got some players stuck on the team that want to compete now, but you don't look like a team that's competing for a Super Bowl. So I think it's going to get ugly. I think they are entitled and they haven't been through it, but they better get used to it because with them having that situation at quarterback, this is going to be the new norm. And if you get rid of Tomlin, go ahead and get rid of Tomlin. I'm not even going to tell you what's going to happen with that part. So go ahead and get rid of Tomlin.
I'm with it too.
And do your thing.
I just think that I don't know if I were in their position, I'm not trying to advocate for the Steelers being better. I would keep Tomlin and go get me an offensive mind, like a young offensive mind, and then start over and then, and work off the trenches. And some of them pieces, you got to sell it off. Remember, we had that episode, that's a big episode for us about like do you keep Dunlap or do you keep Geno? That was a big, meeting of the minds. And I feel like they're at the crossroads where, like, yeah, when we watch Steelers on TV, they show TJ Watt a lot, but bro about to be 30 if he isn't 30 already. And we're talking about wasting probably like some of his best years. Now, I ain't saying trade him off or whatever, but some of the Cam Haywards of the world that probably are getting closer to the end anyway, I will be entertaining some of the ideas of that. Speaking of Cam Hayward and those guys up front, if you were to ask me, how do you win this game? I think it's kind of crazy that we've been saying as Bengals, let's run the football more. In this one game, at least at the beginning of this game, I think that plays to their strengths with their front. If you saw the Steelers having success in this game, how does that look?
I think if the Steelers have success in this game, I think it is the run defense, because the run defense is 11th right now at home, so that would be playing into their strength. I think for them, what they've done a lot this season is trying to force turnovers. So if I'm the Steelers in this game, I'm going to try to win that turnover battle, which is funny because both of these teams kind of mirror each other, even though the Bengals have been better at it because they haven't had a quarterback that's turning the ball over like Mitch Trubisky and Kenny Pickett to a sense. So I think that's where they can try to do something to win this game. And then I think obviously with DJ Reader being out, you kind of have to test the Bengals run defense. So that's going to be something where the Bengals have to be on their P's and Q's on a guy like Jaylen Warren. I actually thought they did a great job against Jaylen Warren that first matchup. I thought that he could be a guy that could hurt us. But now with no DJ Reader, I think if you're Pittsburgh, you're going to try that. I think also like a lot of them have been saying stuff like Mason Rudolph is a guy that will take deep shots and stuff like that. So I think if you're the Bengals, you have to watch out for those. If you're the Steelers, you're probably going to try to do that. But at 5% explosive plays, I just don't see it really working because they're one of the worst teams in the league when it comes to that. The Bengals were once at that point early on in the season when we didn't have any big plays. Currently now the Bengals are a 10% explosive play kind of team. That's where they hover around now. So if you're the Steelers, you would want to limit that. But on the flip side, like looking at some of these stats that we have here with the splits, right now their passing offense is 29th. Their EPA is 28th. Their passing defense is 19th. So that's probably the weakest part of their defense.
and that's with the starting safeties. That's like if y'all don't know, they're past the fourth. They don't have Minka, they don't have the kid Riley, they don't have the kid Thompson, and Kazee got suspended indefinitely, or at least to the end of the season or the rest of the NFL season, unless they make the playoffs or something. But he's out too. So now they got Patrick Peterson playing safety. I just wanted to make that clear.
I don't even know. They're talking about Tomlin mixing up our guys. I don't know who the other safety is other than Patrick Peterson.
They talking about Tomlin. He called Chase Brown. Called him what the heck he called? He called him something else, bro. Like he messed up his name and he messed up somebody else's name. So I hope they play.
That's insane. As a coach, that's not something that you should be messing up.
I think coaches
should game plan.
Coaches should stick to numbers. That's what I would do. Like, I don't remember everybody's name. I'm pretty good with football last names, but on film, I just go by numbers. And I think Tomlin should go to numbers. Maybe that's a sign Tomlin's getting a little older. I don't know.
It could be. Speaking of some numbers, I talked about the turnover differential. Pittsburgh is 12th at home. Cincinnati on the road is 4th in the league. The DVOA stats, the Bengals are winning that one. They're 10th. I don't know how Pittsburgh is 19th. They might need to fix that DVOA formula because Pittsburgh looks like 32nd to me, home or on the road, whichever one. Defense, they're giving the Steelers the advantage. 9th, they got Cincinnati 26, which I don't agree with that. Special teams, the Bengals are 5th. That could be something that plays a huge part in this game. For the Steelers, they are 21st. When it comes to offensive line sack percentage, the Steelers have struggled a little bit on that front. However, they haven't given up too many sacks, so they're actually 12th at home. Bengals on the road are 22nd. When it comes to pressures, though, the Bengals went out. They're 13th with allowing the 13th least amount of pressures. Steelers, on the other hand, 24th. So that sounds like a situation that Trey can do some things. What are your thoughts on that?
I feel like one of the things that the Bengals got to do is be able to stop the run, particularly on early downs. I think Mike Hilton's going to be a big part of like the run defense in this game. And I think if I'm coaching up the Steelers or I'm coaching up Mason Rudolph, I'm going to say, hey, watch if Mike Hilton, comes in on a run blitz. That's your hot read. Let's get it out to those people. And I think the Bengals need to be mindful of who they keep behind Mike Hilton. And he's got to get the ball out fast. I just don't think Mason Rudolph processes that fast, and I think you'll see him take a good amount of sacks. Dan Moore is a person that I think Trey Hendrickson can 1,000% take advantage of. A lot of bigger guys, offensive line guys or whatever. Now, he did have a really good game, I thought, last week against he had the Raymond game where he killed Raymond, and then he came back and had a pretty good game against Darrisaw. But right. Darrisaw is big. Guys that are bigger in stature, I find they have a lot of trouble with Trey Hendrickson. It's something I need to get with like a statistician or something like that. But remember, I always talk about that Macari game, and I'm like, Trey Hendrickson get backed up by Macari. But if you look at his frame, he's smaller in stature. He's not this tall, imposing guy. Just like the Trent Williams one, I remember in 2021, Trey Hendrickson was killing him. And like 49ers fans are like, yeah, Trent Williams didn't play. I'm like, I don't know. Trey Hendrickson gets so low with his bend. Dan Moore is another guy. He's not a small guy. And he's one of the, I feel like if I'm looking at this game, that's the mark to me, like where I want to take advantage of that opportunity. The Bengals have to stop the run on early downs and set themselves up. When you see this team, and I think this is the part where you were like, yeah, I don't really quite agree with the 26 ranking. To me, I keep on saying this, but I want to say this to somebody that hasn't seen them consistently play. The Bengals are really good defense with the lead. Now, a lot of teams probably could say the same thing, but I really feel like if you trace the money, chase the roster construction, it's created to get a lead, put your quarterback in passing situations. Excuse me. Ludini goes crazy, and then Trey Hendrickson is coming around the corner. When the games went, which is so different this year than last year, is when early in the season Burrow wasn't playing his best ball. We're not going to go into why. He's not playing his best ball. You're going 3 and out. This team it takes advantage of all the opportunities it's given. Graded takeaways. We're probably third in the National Football League as far as like the turnover ratio, whatever. But they aren't like stop you. You're not getting nothing type of defense unless it was like the run with DJ Reader like last year. But when you're off the field, it's just hard to hold that. Whereas I just think that most of the ratings kind of key in on that. Like the Bengals haven't had a lead for a bunch of these games this season, and then teams feasted on the defense. If the Bengals get a lead in this game, it's night-night. And I feel like that, and that's one of the reasons why I feel like the Bengals do have a really good chance to go just as far. If Browning is playing even a little bit lower than what he's playing right now, if they're playing with the lead, this Bengals team is very scary now that you got Myles Murphy now giving you quality pass rush. You got BJ Hill kind of turning it up, and then you got the secondary with Cam Taylor-Britt coming back next week. Like, it is a pretty good defense, but they struggle against the run. And every single week, to me, that's the key. Because when they get you in second and distance, if a team gets a penalty, it's like second and 15, whatever. Most of the teams that we're playing, unless you got like a Pat Mahomes that could scramble out of it or Lamar Jackson, you're not going to be able to decipher what you want to do. Throw like Ludini's coming for you at that point. So to me, that's the biggest key. Is stopping that run on early downs and then making sure that you put in Mason Rudolph in 2nd and 14, 3rd and 8. 3rd and 12, like that's what you want. And I think you just feel really, really good about your chances at that one.
Yeah, and I think that's something that the Bengals can take advantage on the flip side. Obviously, they've got a kid in Joey Porter Jr. that's been pretty solid, one of their top players. Keeping Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt away from Browning is definitely going to be key in this game. And then converting in the red zone. This is a really good red zone defense. When you look at the EPA per play, according to SIS, they are the 2nd-ranked red zone EPA team where they're allowing a negative 0.29. So that means that's how they are affecting offenses. That's how offenses are affected once they approach them in the red zone. So the Bengals have to be able to connect there And then on late downs, they are susceptible. They're 19th ranked in terms of EPA. So Bengals have to try to do some things there. When you look at the defensive identity of this team, they are more so a team that's looking to be the least amount of nickel in the league, which is surprising, right? A lot of teams are running nickel now. They are 31st in the league. They only run it 37% of the time. When you look at their man defense, that is something where they are a top team in terms of running that. So they will throw some man-to-man out there. So T. Higgins has got to win his matchup against some of those guys out there. And then when you look at the rushing from a 5-rush standpoint, they rush the 4th most in the league with 5 rushers. So being able to pick up those extra rushers, which I think the Jake Browning and the Bengals got a preview of that with one of the top teams in the league doing it with the Vikings last week with Brian Flores. That's something that they'll have to combat against. But I think this is a situation where the Bengals can come out with a victory, and I think it could be a situation where all we need is a dub. Like, I don't care how they get it as long as they come out of this one with a dub. But let's get into some of these over or unders before we close out, and we'll get into some fantasy sleepers. So I just pulled some up. We've got some ones here. Jake Browning. We were pretty hot on the last show, by the way. If you guys listened to us last week, you definitely got some money.
Fire, bro. No, we did like 7 props, and I think the only prop we missed about like 4 or 5 yards with the mixing. Yep. I think that was the only one that we missed. We hit on all of them. We were scary on the Tyler Boyd one came in late, but yeah, we got it.
But you called that one. You said that Tyler Boyd, so I feel like we got that one as well. This one looks a little juicy right here. Jake Browning, over or under 1.5 passing touchdowns, plus 120 on that. I think he could easily throw for 2.
These weird Steelers, bro. Like,
so you don't think so? You taking the under?
No, hell no, I'm taking the over. Okay. But when you say it's so easy, it's something weird about that team. They just do some weird stuff, and you look up and you're like, how the hell is this game only 10 to 10? 10 to 8. Why is it close? So yeah. If you would have told me 2.5, I might entertain it. But we're gonna take the over, or at least I'm gonna take the over on the 1.5. Jake Browning.
All right, T. Higgins, receiving yards, over or under 57.5.
Give me the over. Did y'all see what T. Higgins did to these boys last year with no Jamar Chase? Gave them $160 on their face, and did he have a tutty in there? I know we killed them and put 37 points on their head, but T. Higgins went wild.
This one I think is some easy money if you guys are betting out there. Trenton Irwin, over or under 17.5 receiving yards. I am hammering the over on this one, especially with Jamar Chase out. You look at what happened last year. Jamar Chase was out. Who was the guy that came in and went off? It was Trenton Irwin. If you're telling me so even if Yoshi is in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know that Irwin can't catch a 20-yard pass. That's kind of crazy.
If what's so crazy, he's on the outside. So generally you'll see the depth of target on Trent Irwin passes. They're always like 18, 20 yards. So I'm going to take the over on that one too. I will say last week, though, you saw a drop in his snaps because of Yoshivas and Charlie Jones. This is a crazy stat. Charlie Jones played 4 snaps on offense. Do you know he had 3 targets in those 4 snaps? I thought that was wild.
Another one here. Tanner Hudson, receptions. Over or under 2.5? Over. That's another easy money, I feel like. All right, let me give you one from the Steelers side. George Pickens, over or under 3.5 receptions?
That's a tough one.
Because 105 for the over.
Because he could come out there. Tomlin might say, "Look, we're gonna bench him first quarter to teach him a lesson." If he plays a full game, I'm gonna take the over on it.
Okay.
I just think now, what's his yards at?
His yards are at. Give me 1 second, because I just saw another one that looked like some free money. But we're gonna get to that one. His yardage is over or under 41.5.
Damn, I'm gonna take the over on both of them.
Yeah, so you taking the over on both of those?
Yeah.
I think that I'm gonna take CTB is back. CTB is back. I would take the over. I mean,
No,
I would take the over.
CTB is not back till next week.
So CTB is back next week then. Okay.
Chiefs
Gotcha.
is the first game that he's
Okay.
eligible for. He's not back this week.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I think he could get the over. Here's one that's easy money though. Trey Hendrickson, over or under a half sack, plus 105 odds on the over right now.
I'm taking the over, bro. Like I'm
taking
making
the
it sound like the Bengals just gonna steamroll the Steelers, huh?
I'm taking the over on that, man. I just don't like with what Trey Hendrickson has done the last couple of weeks, him having 15 sacks on the season. I don't understand why TJ Watt is minus 250 for a half sack and Trey Hendrickson is plus 105. Like, I'm going to take advantage of that bias there. I think we also hit, if I'm not mistaken, ironically, on the UC linebacker last week in terms of his tackles. I think we hit on that one as well. So
Ivan, when he left there pretty sad on that plane. I know it was his birthday. That boy said he wanted to have some fun out there in Cincy.
Right, for sure.
Had to put him on a plane.
For sure. Let's switch it up, man.
I think TJ Watt's good for. I will take the over on that one. I'm gonna take the over on the Trey. I think they both get their half sack for sure.
Here's a tricky one. In this game, who has the longest reception? You got T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Chase Brown. You have Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, Pat Freiermuth.
I'm gonna go Deontay Johnson. I hate to say it. I think T. Higgins is just gonna work the intermediates all day, but I could see Deontay Johnson breaking. DJ Turner he plays this sticky coverage, and then sometimes he just allows guys to break free a little bit. You saw a little bit of that last week. I could see a guy like Deontay Johnson breaking free from him. I'm gonna go Deontay Johnson with the biggest yards on a reception.
That wraps it up for our over-under segment. Next, we'll get into start, sit, sleeper. This is our fantasy segment of people that we would start, sit, or are our sleepers. Zim, who are you starting in this game, bro?
I'm starting T. Higgins all day. It's T on you. You know, it's T time, head top, all of that stuff. Like, that's who I'm starting. Who you starting, bro?
I'm probably starting. I almost want to put. Well, no, I'm gonna save him for my sleeper. I'm going to start Joe Mixon in this game. I think he's on a streak right now, 8 straight touchdowns. I think that streak continues, especially when they get into the goal line. I'm getting vibes of 2021 where he was able to get a bunch of touchdowns. I don't think that stops. So I'm going to go with Joe Mixon. I'm actually starting him on my fantasy roster this week in the semifinals.
I am too. Can I give you a gem? If you haven't seen this, we put this out on the Wincinnati pod as a graphic. I wanted to pull this up. Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon. This is a family show. Joe Mixon, currently right now in the NFL, there's only one other running back that has done this. But Joe Mixon on the entire season has had 13 games with 60 yards plus from scrimmage. Now that's all-purpose passing or rushing. A lot of sports books might not give you all-purpose yards. But as far as that goes in the NFL, Joe Mixon and CMC are the only 2 running backs in the NFL to accomplish that feat this year.
Yes, sir. So who are you sitting, Zim? Because I'm sitting Najee Harris. I'm sitting Najee.
Sitting Najee. It would be too easy to say I'm sitting Rudolph. I'm going to sit George Pickens.
Mm-hmm.
You know, another. All right, I could put it for my sleeper. I'm gonna sit George Pickens on the strength of. I just think they're gonna put him in a doghouse and then maybe give him some opportunities late to like redeem himself. My sleeper though. Sorry guys, Pat Freiermuth again. I'm so sick of tight ends or whatever, you know, like cooking up the Bengals, but it's just something with our scheme where, you know, when you look at it schematically, it makes sense. We're trying to take away the outer, you know, portions, but if the offensive line gets enough time for the Steelers, then generally you can get Freiermuth behind these linebackers, and it is what it is. I think
You want to know what's crazy?
That's my sleeper.
Pat Freiermuth's over under receiving yards is 26.5. I'm taking the over on that. I mean,
Taking the over on that. He
sleeper
might get that. He might get that on the first drive, bro.
on one drive. Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna go with. I don't know if he's a sleeper now. He's a sleeper to people that are not familiar with the Bengals, and that's T. Huddy. You know, he's coming off of a game where he just had 5 receptions. The Steelers linebackers, you talked about them, they're pretty much trash. This is a guy that has been a reliable target for Jake Browning. I could actually see him getting his second touchdown of the season in the red zone in this game. So that is going to do it for our start, sit, and sleeper segment. Zim, what are the keys to victory in this game for the Bengals against the Steelers?
Stop the run. Mistake-free football is number 2. And number 3, give all the opportunities and the resources at the for the defensive line as well as Jake Browning to succeed. And so that's developing a game plan that allows linebacker help from stopping the run. So I guess 1 and 3 is damn near the same thing for me. But giving the resources, calling up all the big boys up front to put that together, and then on the other side of it, don't put too much on Jake Browning's plate like we saw 4 weeks ago. Those are my 3.
I think for me it's going to be making sure that you convert in the red zone against this defense. I think that's key. Second, I'm going to stick with the offensive side of the ball. Score at least 21, 24. This game will be over, I believe, if the Bengals do that, just with how the Steelers have struggled. If you put pressure, and where I'm coming from is if you put pressure on that Steelers offense that has struggled, they will self-implode. They will start to second-guess themselves. And I think if you make it a situation where you can do that and then rely on the run, you can be out of this one with a victory. And then third, turnovers. You kind of hit on it with the first one. Win the turnover margin. Don't turn it over too many times, and then force turnovers. Force Mason Rudolph to give you the ball because he will do that. So I think if they're able to do that, they get out of here with a victory. If you guys haven't, make sure that you caught my man 6 Guy hoodies. They're out now. At the time that we were recording last time, we only had the T-shirts. Now Zim has got them out. Get those at zimhude.com. Make sure you cash those in. Would love to see you guys out there with the 6 Guy hoodies on in Pittsburgh for sure. So if you do have one of those, tag him on Twitter at zimhude. And then you can follow us.
Yes,
at the
want to retweet that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So get that. We'd love to see you guys wearing those out there. Zim, was there anything else that you wanted to say before we get out of here?
What's that on your hoodie, my friend?
Oh, this is the Trace Amigos. I got the beanie and I got the hoodie on.
Where can they get that at?
newstripecity.com, sir. newstripecity.com. They can go and grab those. Appreciate you guys showing us love and supporting us for the merch. Also, you guys can get this podcast out to whoever you guys know that don't know Ace and Zim. Let them know about us. Let them know about Wincinnati. Let them know about the Bengals Pulse with Jake and mine. Because we're doing some great stuff over here, and let them know about the channel so we can keep growing that community. We truly appreciate you guys. And also follow us on Twitter at New Stripe City, at Zimhude. Sometimes we will be doing spaces, and we'll also be back with you guys with a post-game show. We'll get that figured out, but we should be here for a post-game show and give you guys that reaction. We appreciate you guys for sure. Zim, anything else?
No, I just want everybody to keep the hope alive. Let's give me Sebastian Joseph-Day, and I promise I might be talking some stuff because I feel like that's the one thing I just keep on coming back to is like, can the Bengals consistently stop the run? So please, Bengals, if y'all listening to this, please give us Sebastian Joseph-Day. I think moving forward, that's a guy that could really be a part of the rotation too. Not just right now, long term. Come on, Bengals, give us what we need. Aside from that, man, like you said, I appreciate all the support, everybody that's been buying stuff from New Stripe City. I know like last week, I was very surprised. A lot of people brought the 6 Guy stuff. So keep those orders coming on zimhude.com. I'm so appreciative that you guys are rocking with us, even the ops in here too. We appreciate you checking out the channel. Make sure you send it to people and be like, these guys suck or whatever, but we need more views. So tell everybody, come on in and come check out Wincinnati. It's all love. Ace, you got any closing remarks?
The Steelers. That's what my closing remarks are. F the Steelers, straight up.
It's an exciting time to be a Bengals fan.
I'm AC
We got a special show as always.
the voice of the Bengals.
Hello,
Dan
world.
Ford, Willie Anderson, Corey Dillon.
The name of this thing is called Wincinnati, and I'm not going to stop.
Talk to us about that roller coaster season.
I'm still gonna give you the same AJ.
I'm gonna work as hard as I can to be the best.
Always working ever since I met y'all, boy.
I gotta get you a top 5 receiver.
Better, man. It was good. Watch out for us.